Hello everyone, welcome to the Future of Women in Comedy. My name's Jessica Toomey, I'll be chairing this. I'm the director of the Women in Comedy Festival, also the Frog and Bucket Comedy Club, the Live Comedy Association and Fab Comedy Management. And I'll let the rest of the panel introduce themselves.
Hello, good to see you all. I'm Lynn Parker, I'm the founder and chief exec of Funny Women, which is a non-profit platform for female comedy. We're best known for running the Funny Women Awards, which celebrated 20 years last year. That's why I've got so much grey hair. Yes, and alongside that, we run workshops. We do a lot of development work. We're running a campaign locally where we're based down in Medway called Comedy in the Community. So community is at our heart, but today it's all about the female community.
Hello, I'm Amy, and I'm a Google Doc guru. Hey, no, I'm a programmer for the Women in Comedy Festival. I also work as a progression booker at the Frog and Bucket and look after Beat the Frog, and then I'm pretty much Jess's assistant for everything.
Very good at it.
I'm Danny. I am the director and head of live at A Rush of Laughter.
I'm going to start with you, Lynn. Most experienced here.
Yeah, well, and the oldest, so why not?
Come August, I'll be 20 years.
Yeah.
Tell me why we need Funny Women and Women in Comedy Festival and the likes. Why do you think they exist?
Well, every 5 years or so, I think I don't need to do this anymore. You know, it's number one, I'm knackered, and why am I still doing it? And then something happens, and off we go again. And usually the reason I'm going through this sort of process is because we've either lost a sponsor or something else has happened. But there's something very compelling about what we all do. And there is still very much a need to have safe spaces for women to develop creatively. Because despite how it may look, the comedy world is still quite misogynistic. Oddly, in the last few weeks, in fact, Jessica and I were talking about it just last week, there's been a weird kind of post-pandemic, I can only describe it as a backlash of, women struggling to get gigs. And I was talking to a couple of Cornwall, Devon-based female comedians last week, and they're setting up a Funny Women community event that was their idea, and I obviously will back them. And they were saying they're doing it because they're finding it increasingly difficult to get gigs, and they're gigs that they used to get very easily, they're not getting offered them. And it's like a sort of, by the way, no disrespect to any men in the room, because I have to say Funny Women survives because we have a lot of brilliant, supportive men that work with us. We have men on our non-executive board. I have a male awards director. So this isn't a man. It's not us knocking men. It's just their perception is that the men have closed ranks a bit and they're not getting the gigs. And then there have been some other strange incidents. Obviously, the Russell Brand case had its role. That broke just before we had our 20th anniversary awards. About a week before the awards, two things happened. A programme about 20 years of Funny Women came out on BBC Radio 4, which was fantastic for us. It was an hour's documentary, archive on 4, which was so lovely and so celebratory. And all of a sudden, my phone was ringing and saying, will you come and talk to us about the programme and also the awards? Actually, what they wanted to talk to me about was Russell Brand. So I had a sort of situation where there we are on the verge of a really big anniversary for what we do, celebratory, but all the press wanted to talk about was, you know, what was going on with Russell Brand.
We had that with
the
I think everyone, Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
All the press, we could attract, they didn't want to discuss the women, they just wanted to discuss men.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's a post-pandemic reaction, but in part I feel like that has put us back probably 5-10 years. And there's an element of what is happening now for me, which is a bit Groundhog Day, which is this feels a bit like it was in the early days. Bear in mind, I started running Funny Women in 2002. and ran the first awards in 2003. And that makes me really sad. I'm annoyed about that. But is that something that happens culturally when you have a big crisis, a big world event? I don't know. But I'd be very interested in anyone's thoughts on it. So that's the sort of thing that's been happening, and I can feed back. I know you've had your own kind of little weird experience with it as well.
I think a few of us described it as almost like a wave in that.
Yeah.
We get progression.
Yeah.
And then the tide comes back
Yes,
again.
it's exactly what it feels like.
And we do feel like it's gone back a little bit.
And then coupled with losing our big sponsor in the middle of last year's awards, which was probably, disastrous sort of underplays it. But, you're in the middle of a competition that's got over 2,000 women invested in it. Either they've entered themselves for one of the awards, the performance, the stage award, the script award, the shorts award, and then you've got this amazing group of women content creators, thousands of them, thousands of votes, and you've got all this going on, and then suddenly your sponsor, who is basically a big broadcaster, pulls the rug. And talking of waves, I felt like I was drowning at that point, but something compels you to carry on. And on balance, I'm pleased we carried on, and we did deliver a fantastic final last year. I'm very proud of it. And we had the programme on BBC. So, I don't know what the answer is, but I think the wave description is a good one.
Do you find, Danielle, as a live booker, it's harder to get your female acts booked?
Definitely do. Like, I try so hard, but also there's another aspect of it, because when it comes to safeguarding them as well, there might be an act that's on that lineup that they can't work with, so they'll just either just say, oh well, it's not going to work then, and then they'll go and find a different act as well. So, and they'll make it an all-male lineup. So it's just, 9 times out of 10, they'll either do that or they'll just disappear and not say anything back at all. So then you just don't know whether they're booked in or not, or anything like that. But it's definitely harder to get women booked in.
If you address to a booker or programmer that, sorry, my act can't be on that bill because of who else is on the bill, do you feel they have a process to handle that?
I think it's a bit of a... I think they should. If they don't want me to say why they don't want to work with that act, then obviously I can't really explain to the promoter that, this is why, because it could be it's just happened to them, or it's a difficult one really, because obviously it's my point of safeguarding of, I don't want them on that bill, they don't want to be on that bill. Or I'll just go to them and say, look, this person's on that bill. Do you still want me to take you out of it, or do you still want to do it? And I'll just go my way around it, because I don't think many promoters know how to deal with it either, because it is a difficult one to sort of, for the promoter, especially if that person's already been booked in for like months or whatever as well. But then that one act can't work with them, so I just sort of go around in a weird circle and just see how it works
Get
out.
Off has been doing some great training around that. Very much, don't need to ask questions, just change the bill. No questions asked.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, not maybe everyone's signed up to that training. Or
Yeah, it's hard because there is no training out there at all for that sort of thing. So you've just got to you've got to find your own way and just, see what the act feels like best of doing for themselves. But yeah, there's definitely no training out there for that sort of thing at all.
do you think, Amy, that's why the Women in Comedy Festival is so popular? Because of how hard it is to do gigs on the circuit then?
Yeah, 100%. I think also it's a safe space for all women to come and do that festival without the pressures and the competitiveness of men in a way. And it just feels like, I know it's going to sound really cheesy, but it does feel like a sisterhood. Do you know what I mean? It really does feel like we're all coming together. That you can just tell as soon as a female actor who's never been to Manchester before, never done the festival, and when they do it, they're like, oh, this is just so relaxed. I can just do my show. You guys are here for me. I mean, me and Jess run around looking after everyone pretty much, and they just feel so much more relaxed. And they're like, oh, I can just do my show, and I get to do it to an audience who have come to see me. And it's Manchester is coming out year after year, coming back more and getting more and more support to women. And also, it's a way to carve out more of a path for more and more audiences to get on board, because we need the audiences to change their point of view that women are funny.
Do you think audiences are well ahead than the bookers there with that mentality of women are funny?
I think that audiences want to, and we've got to remember like 50% of the audience are women. And you can just see that when a woman is on stage, like I'll use Nina Gilligan as an example, you can just see all the women in the room just laughing, going, oh my God, finally, there's a joke about me. You know, and so I think women, the audience are hungry for it, but we also have to show them that as well. And I think bookers haven't really connected with that. They just think, oh no, they're not funny. They don't, you know. Because they're just thinking of it as a male thing, because when the man crosses his arms, you know, and stares at you, they think, oh, well, that's our demographic and that's what we're supporting. But actually, as we know, women buy all the tickets. They're the ones going, we're going out to a comedy night. That's what we're doing on Saturday. Yeah.
I don't think women are blameless, though. I'm being sorry to be, but I mean, I've been doing this a very long time, and what you're saying, I was hearing people say 20 years ago, and that's sad to me. That's sad that we haven't moved on, and perhaps I don't know if southern audiences are different, and London also, but you know, the agenda is also driven by the 50% female audience, and a lot of women will go and are there to see male comedians. You all heard of the expression "gag hags"? You know, it's attractive. How did Russell Brand get away with it? You know, there is a sort of fan base for male comedians amongst women. I've actually had women audience had discussions with women in audiences saying they prefer male comedians. They don't like watching women performing. I mean, you've got to factor that in. I'm not saying that's...
I've made some ugly observations at the Frog and Bucket, to be honest.
Yes, yeah.
There'll be a couple. There's a woman on stage.
Yeah.
It's a couple. The guy's killing himself, laughing at this woman. He's looking up at a woman, laughing at her, and the female partner doesn't like it.
She's giving him daggers, yeah.
Yeah.
The worst audience, we used to run... we were sponsored by Benefit Cosmetics for 5 glorious years, and we had a lovely residency in London, which became sort of the Benefit gig, and it was on the Hispaniola boat on the River Thames. And because it was Benefit and it was Benefit Cosmetics, we attracted a lot of like hen nighty girls out on the Prosecco type audiences in their droves, and they were brutal. Is all I can say. A famous, now quite famous female comedian did her. It was in the run up to Edinburgh, so we had quite a lot of work in progresses, and a couple of the female comedians who were quite experienced just couldn't hack it, because these women were awful. They were drunk before they even got in the room, and then they'd sit in their gaggles, and honestly, they thought they were funnier than the poor woman selling her stuff on the stage. We get a lot of hen nights in Brighton as well, our Comedia gig. It is tough. And a lot of those hen nights they kind of exemplify what women do, which is women's comedy is kind of, you know, circular and a part of their friendship circle. You know, they all laugh together. And actually, half the time, they subscribe to the idea of going to watch female comedian. It doesn't really almost matter who's on stage. So, you know, I think you just got to bear in mind the reality of the comedy scene. Because at grassroots, and you're starting out, some of these gigs are really tough. I mean, you know, that sort of couple scenario is very familiar. I've seen that again and again.
Yeah.
But that's where it's our job. So, for example, I book Beat the Frog, which is a gong show, and I can all feel you go, oh, gong shows as women, oh no, because they're male-dominated, right? We have 15 spots, and we hold 2 for women, and most of the time I'll have 2. On a good day I may have 3, and then by Monday I may only have 1. Wow. And all the men take those. There's 50 of them waiting to just take that spot from you. And they're afraid of it because they're like, oh, it's a competition, and I don't like it because it's so Roman, that, ugh. But what I'm trying to re-educate and say to women is, no, this is a chance for you to try and keep an audience on your side for 5 minutes. Let go of the competition element. If you don't think about that and think, right, this is my training ground, because if you can do that in 5 minutes and keep an audience on your side and those cards don't go up, whether you win the clap off or not, that's, a bonus, because then when you do get to those big gigs and deal with those hens nights, you can deal with them because you're like, oh, it wasn't as bad as doing Beat the Frog. You know what I mean? So I think we have a responsibility as promoters, and that's why I was saying the Women in Comedy Festival is so special and so unique, because we're teaching audiences to go, come and watch women. Come and watch women. And I will say they are more and more getting more and more filled every year. So
we have to
do our bit, as well as women behind the scenes.
I'm sure Lynn will know from your experience. Women, women prefer more of an academic route into comedy. They'd rather do a workshop or a course before they got on stage.
There is a progression, and I think the whole point of Funny Women is to do exactly what you're saying, Amy. Just put them in the firing line. I totally agree with you about Beat the Frog, and I think it's probably better than the Comedy Store's Gone show. That's quite brutal as well. But if you want to be a stand-up comedian, it is something you've got to do. The competition, I have women say they won't enter the competition because they think that's difficult. But actually, the competition is probably the gentlest way in you can have. And it's a great way just to, again, exactly like the Women in Comedy Festival, it's all women. There's, we've got rid of all the sort of external things that would get in your way. We're very kind, we look after them, and it is a fairly academic approach to it. I get a lot of women that come and do, we run a number of workshops. I regularly run Stand Up, Stand Out. I'm not a comedian myself, but I'm a very good trainer. And my thing is about getting people to do it. I get lots of women come and do that. And a lot of them go on to go into comedy. Might take them a few years. That's the other thing. The progression is a bit longer because quite a lot of women have got children and they've got other external factors that takes them a bit longer. I've got a lovely woman I'm coaching at the moment, and we have to keep rearranging her sessions because she's got a child, and then we had half term. We were talking about that before we come in, and then she shares parenting with the child's father. He's not looking after the son that week. So, you have to be quite patient. It's a slightly different, longer route. And then the where I think the academic thing comes in is older women. I mean, I'm technically a pensioner, and older women get quite a raw deal, and I think they lose their confidence. But actually, some of the funniest and most brilliant comedy comes out of the older women because they've got so much life experience. And the other area, sorry, just ranting on a bit, but the other area that I think's really brought things on for female comedy is the whole content creation market. Because if you've got kids and you've got to get them to school, you can still make videos at home and put them on TikTok and Instagram. And we've had 4 Content Creator Awards. Sophie McCartney is hugely successful, tried and tested. She's a mum of 3. She does all her stuff. She is now touring a show, and she toured last year. She's touring again. She's never been a proper stand-up. And then Mammy Banter, who, I don't know if any of you have seen her.
Her second ever gig
So funny.
Was a sold-out 240 audience at the Frog and Bucket. It's the second time she'd ever stepped foot on a stage.
The first gig Mammy Banter ever did, she's from Belfast. Yeah. Her name is Serena Terry. You'll find her on TikTok and Instagram. First live gig she ever did was a promoter came through in Belfast and said, will you do a live gig? And she said, well, I'm not a stand-up. He said, I'll don't worry, just get on stage. She sold out a 2,000-seater venue. First ever gig. I've seen a video of it. It is spectacular. But, you know, the effort that goes into doing what she does is, you know, it takes up lots of work. You know, it does take a lot of work to do it. And in fact, lovely Serena is the other thing. We run online courses, comedy crash courses, and she's doing one of our modules at the next one in April. So if anyone's interested in that, sign up now, because I think it's going to be very popular. But, you know, the point is those women have access to performing comedy through the power of, you know, social media, and they're taking it. And I think, I may be wrong, but I think women are more successful at that.
You saw that last year at the festival with, was it Sophie?
Yeah, Sophie. She sold out 5 shows. It was crazy.
Which Sophie's that?
Sophie Gallistine.
Oh, yes.
So she went, it was crazy. Within 24 hours, she sold out a 30-seat, and we were like, what? And she had only asked for a 30-seater venue. Yeah. And then next thing you know, we put on 4 extra shows for her. It was crazy. She could have sold out the Frog. Yeah.
Well, I think women do have their audience somewhere. It's just finding them. And things like Funny Women and the Women in Comedy Festival put the right audience with the acts. I'm fascinated to know, 20 years ago, have things actually progressed at all?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have, between us all, changed the face of comedy. I think it is very different. When I got involved first with comedy, it was in about 1997, 98. And I was asked as a publicist to work with a club in London. And night after night, it was, at the time, it was people like Frank Skinner, Pub Landlord. I'm trying to think who else was on the bill. It was all that era, and never saw a female comedian ever. And I couldn't understand it. I just said to the promoters that were running it, who were effectively my bosses, why don't you book any women? And I was simply told that because women aren't funny, and that there aren't any funny women. Hence, Funny Women. So sort of, you know, thought, right, I'll get you. That was the catalyst for starting it, and it was just a very different scene. I mean, the Pub Landlord is interesting because, you know, he, much as I like him and he's funny, it is quite a misogynist act, you know. But he still sells tickets. There's still a market for that kind of comedy, but it seemed to me it was very anti-woman, almost. So, yeah, and then the first thing I did was I did a big charity event called Funny Women in 2002, out of which we met Babysham, who became our first sponsors, and backed us for 3 years, which was fantastic. But, you know, it was the thing I really wanted to do, and or still want to do, was always about grassroots and actually getting women to have a go at comedy. You know, even if they didn't. I mean, a lot of women come into it and then disappear, you know, don't they? They go into writing or whatever. And I've seen some amazing women come through, and then they pop up doing something completely different years later, but they've all had a sort of success in some way. And that's what I love about it. So we have this huge, vast community of women that have come through the awards for 20 years who are all doing amazing things, or got off and done something completely different. So I think what the way it looks now is different. And then you've got the other thing is you've got some real mega stars. Catherine Ryan, clearly, is probably not ours, I wish it was, the biggest grossing female stand-up, without a doubt. And they're super successful and really, you know, gone against the whole grain of what we were being told 20 years ago. She's glamorous. She's got kids. She's everything, you know, that they were telling us you couldn't be. Like I remember a well-known promoter, you'll all know who I'm probably talking about, female promoter, telling the girls not to dress up because then they wouldn't be taken seriously. You know, don't dress up, don't put makeup on. If you want to be down with the boys, you've got to look like the boys. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then Catherine comes along and, you know, the fashion designers are throwing clothes at her. She's so successful. And I think she is a good example of a sort of segue into this content creator market as well, because she's quite big on social media too. So yeah, I think it looks very different. I think it's much more, there are much more opportunities. I don't think it's just in stand-up either. I think it's in comedy writing and comedy producing. I went to the launch event for a new panel show this week called Out of Order. It's being hosted by Rosie Jones, and the two regular panel leaders are Catherine Ryan and Judy Love. To me, it's just a great comedy show, but all the headlines are all-female panel show, you know. But actually, forget that. It's a really funny, different format, developed actually by a female writer as well. So, you know, I don't think that would have happened 20 years ago. So maybe that's a good thing. So yeah, I think it is a good picture. Unfortunately, as we've already explored, we're dealing with the backlash, and the whole Russell Brand safeguarding thing is unthinkable, but it's out there. But it's also out there in other industries, not just in comedy. It's in business and all sorts of, yeah, police, the medicine, wasn't it? Female surgeons were getting abused. I mean, you know, the more successful we become, the more someone's out there trying to put you down. And I think that also goes for men and gay people and people with disabilities as well. So, you know, if you're in any kind of... Women aren't a minority either. I mean, that's the other thing we talk about. Is we're not a minority. We're just a minority in certain professions. But, you know, we, as you said, 50% of the population are women. So where does this come from? It's a big power game. But I do think it's a better world than it was.
Do you think maybe, Danielle, it helps that there's a lot more women behind the scenes now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love the fact that now we're seeing as well, there's a lot more women agents out there as well. Like, it's lovely to just speak to another agent and just go, do you know what, this person's been an absolute dick. But it's nice to have your back, you know, and have someone else's back as well. Because, like, going back to, like, the misogyny and stuff like that, I've found that on my side. And then I've gone to other women agents and, you know, even, like, women on the circuit and stuff like that. I mean, I know that I can come to you two, and I think I've probably have, and just gone, right, am I just being out of order here? Like, am I just going doolally? But is this person, like, actually calling me out for being a woman? And it's just like, yeah, he has. You know, he's being a div. But yeah, it's nice to definitely have more women and have those agents and have those more that I can just go, right, I need to speak to you about this. Is this person doing this to you as well? And, you know, it's having that advice and, yeah, like going back to people all the time. And even like when we go out and stuff now, there's a lot more women, you know, when we come to the Frog and Bucket for, well, you know, when we do the awards, there's loads more women there, and it's just absolutely great. And, you know, I just definitely, absolutely find it amazing that we've got more women. I love it.
Amy, I'm interested to know, because you've started working in comedy in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. Who's more progressive in terms of women, England or New Zealand?
Ooh, that's a good question, and we're live, so... You know what? I will say I think New Zealand is a little bit more progressive. And that is just probably the nature of who we are as people. Our history started on getting the vote first. But I do feel because we had already, when I started in 2013, we had a woman who ran the New Zealand Comedy Festival, and it was majority women in that office. We had quite a lot of women who were quite big in New Zealand. So I can't really speak too much of England because I only came 5 years ago, and I started in London at the Bill Murray. So it is hard for me to say, but what I'm hearing and stuff like that, it sounds more like New Zealand was probably a little bit more progressive, just because who we are as people, I think.
Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't actually. And also, we've got communities in mainland Europe. We've got a brilliant producer based in Amsterdam, Roxy, and she runs Funny Women there. And she has got so many women that want to do it. She's gone to 2 nights a month now, which is amazing. I don't know where she gets her energy from, but anyway, that's good. And then we have quite a successful group in Paris. There is definitely a much more global thing going on. We have a gig in Dublin. We've been in Dublin on and off for years. Producers come and go. We've got 2 new producers, and they sell out Chaplin's, which is a big gig. It's quite a well-known. I think it's mainly a music gig, but it's a lovely venue. And then we're starting London up again. And then the latest, the new ones starting up are Rotterdam. I don't even know where Rotterdam is. Is it in Holland still? Holland, Netherlands? I know it's near Amsterdam because it's got dam at the end of it. And then we're starting up we've been approached to set up in Montreal, which is very interesting because it's got absolutely nothing to do with Just for Laughs. Because I'm married to a Canadian and I know Just for Laughs, but they have never, I don't mind if they're listening, they have never embraced Funny Women and never got behind us, even though I know them and I've met them. And these lovely group of young women there have come to us and said, we want to run Funny Women in Montreal. So we've said, yeah, here you go. So we've set them up. And so I think there is a growing international thing. And I think New Zealand is quite advanced. Australia, weirdly not so good.
Yep, that's correct.
I wonder why. But yeah, we have got a sort of nominal producer in Australia, but she's gone very quiet. And I do think it's tough for her.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I can't really speak of Australia's industry because I've never worked it.
And it's very different to New Zealand.
It's 100% different. We're completely different countries. But I can't really speak. But yeah, definitely New Zealand. Yeah, we always had women on the bill. We had women, like my venue manager was a woman. Like, yeah.
There's people like JD Godley, who sadly probably not doing it so much now, but she was always in New Zealand, wasn't she? And I'm just trying to think who else. There's quite a few women I know that have been going out there for years.
Yeah.
I think Lara Riccotti's out there.
Yes,
yeah. She's one of our award finalists, stage award winner.
Yeah.
Lara's definitely out there.
Yeah.
But it seems to embrace that sort of female ethic.
Yeah. But also, I mean, we do have our misogyny in New Zealand. Don't be fooled. But I will say this though, from working, because I've done Edinburgh as well. I will, and I'm not being biased because my boss is sitting here. But Manchester is really progressive. Like, I just feel as a city, it's a progressive, and I think that's why the Women in Comedy Festival works really well there, because people in Manchester just want, you know what I mean? Like, they're a big supporter of the LGBTQ community. They're just such big supporters. And I found working at the Frog, like, just really refreshing.
It's a very young city, I think.
Yeah.
So it's got one of the largest student populations in Europe, and I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Shove things along.
Yeah.
What do you think we'll all be here in another 20 years? Funny women, women in comedy.
I will be so old.
No, but
in another 20 years.
These sorts
I need my
entities.
successor.
not me and you as such.
Will we be doing this?
But do you
Will
think
they
these
exist?
entities will still need to exist?
I didn't think we'd last more than 5 years, so I don't know. Potentially, yeah, I guess so.
I think sadly,
Yeah.
they'll always be.
Yeah.
We'll never get to complete equality.
I think the festival, anyway, because there is another Women in Comedy Festival in Boston in the US, been dormant for a few years, but
They've just started one in Greece as well.
Greece?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord, okay.
They asked us for permission, yeah.
That'd be lovely. Should we all go to Greece?
Yeah,
that sounds
let's
good.
do it.
The Boston one was fantastic, but the 3 women that ran it, I think one of them moved to LA, but our producer in America, Robin Galinsky, she is based in Boston, so we've talked loosely about getting it going again, but I don't run festivals, and I think at this stage of my life, I don't think I can quite take that on. But I think if there was a format for it and you had the people, then I think franchises could work. So these communities that we run in other parts of the world, they're run by other people. They just I mean, it's not a franchise, but we run it like one. You know, they have a set of guidelines, and they're using our branding. They have to do it in a certain way, but it's fairly informal, and that works really well. But I'm sure you could probably do the same with, as you say, the Greek people approached you, and that, I think, actually, that's another thing I have to say. I think women are quite good at that kind of thing. We're quite good at taking. That's why we have a women's institute and things like that. There's kind of, women work very well in sort of groups and volunteers and what have you.
If a man's setting something up, then the automatically are in competition, and maybe not as collaborative. Maybe.
Oh, women are competitive. Don't get me. Let's not go there. I think that still exists. I just think that we work in a very collaborative way. It's just the human nature thing. It's not that men are wrong and women are right. It's just the way women work. We have to get together, you know, hunter-gatherer stuff. You know, we were picking berries and cooking and looking after the kids, and the chaps were off in the forest hunting, you know, and that's kind of the way it is. And I think that helps you understand why when you set up a woman thing, they work quite well. And some of them last a very long time. When I started out in my career, which is a very long time ago, there was only ever one woman's professional network, and it was called Network. How many professional women's networks are there now? There are thousands of them, you know, and that is in my career span. So, you know, I think as women have got stronger and have more of an equal role, we tend to set things up to support each other. They don't all last, but on the whole, we're really good at it. The men have things like the Masons and golf clubs,
Yeah,
football being the big one. Interesting, I was asked if I wanted to join the Lady Masons the other week. On the fence on that one, but there you go. But it's interesting, these networks are very strong. And I think what sitting at this table, I think we are a big part of the network within the comedy industry.
Say this is a question to all of you. Say we got to the point where lineups were 50-50 gender. Well, it shouldn't even be 50-50 nowadays because of. But say we got to the point where there was full equality for women in comedy. Do you think there's still a need for things like Funny Women and Women in Comedy Festival, even if we do get that equality?
I find that a really hard question because that's so unknown. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would love for there to come a point where we could move, say, the Women in Comedy Festival into like a Manchester festival, and it's all equal, and all the audiences are on board, and women are, you know, taking those spots and using their voice. I would really, really, really love that, but I don't know. Because at the moment, it's 2024 and we're having to still have these conversations. So it's like, yeah, I'm sorry if that was a wishy-washy answer.
I mean, you have girl bands and you have boy bands, and they sell, don't they? So I just think of us as, you know, Funny Women's as a comedy girl band, really. And as long as you're selling tickets and people are entering the awards, then there's a need for it. And I would say exactly the same with the festival. As long as you're getting women want to do it and people buying tickets to come and see the shows, then it's relevant. And I think it's a genre. You know, we have, there's lots of different genres now. You have, you know, shows about disability and people of colour and,
that's something that I've wanted to fight.
Yeah.
That female comics is not a genre. It's not a genre of comedy.
No. No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And if you look
Yeah.
within our communities, it's hugely diverse within it
Yeah.
as well. You know, so yeah, it's a really good point actually that we shouldn't be a genre, and that's again what I was saying at the press thing for the TV panel show. There was all this discussion about it being a female panel show, and actually I was saying, well, hang on a minute. Surely it's just a really good panel show that happens to have 3 female people in the hot seats. But this is led by the media. It's not led by us. We're just doing what we do and what we feel comfortable doing. So it's quite. I think you're right. I think that's probably a really thoughtful thing to go away with and think about how we move that on.
I speak to a lot of male promoters, and they kind of reach out to me and go, Jess, I'm really struggling, I can't book women. So this is just a message for the Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Yes.
I go to the Funny Women final every year. I think it's one of my favourite shows of the year. They get snapped up by agents. They all go on to great success. Never once seen a male booker there.
That is very true. I
Same.
think they're there.
Yep, same.
Same with the Women in
They're there.
Comedy Festival. We reach out to them all. Industry pass, come and watch women.
Yeah.
They don't take us
Yeah.
up on it.
And also, I just want to point out, we are not sponsored, the Women in Comedy Festival. We do it all without a sponsor. So we do everything. We try.
I'm still up for it.
We're still up for sponsors. We try. And they come to us and like, yeah, we want to support women. And then they ghost us.
Another reason for that, though, is to ensure that it continues.
Yes.
It has
We all-
to stand on its own feet.
Yeah.
Because if I got used to a sponsor and then I didn't get one next year, and then it puts you in a panic and a stress. So we'd just rather be self-sufficient and just somehow financially.
But I think you get
Make
to
it
the
work.
point. I'm saying this year, if we don't get a sponsor this year for the Funny Women Awards, it can't happen. I cannot have another year like your last year, and it's sad, but you know, I think that's it. We've got to get people invested in it. They've got to understand the value of it. It's being associated with the Women in Comedy Festival or Funny Women. It's a fantastic opportunity for a brand that sells something to women. Honestly, it's a fantastic opportunity. And if you're out there in whatever land we're on, do call us, because you know we can't do this. Keep doing it. Keep doing it for nothing. We deserve to be rewarded, and so does our talent.
Yes.
They need to have support and love and money.
Yeah. International Women's Day coming up soon.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm sure we're all involved in lots of events.
Yes.
What are you doing, Lynn?
I'm working with my local council in Medway on a campaign called Comedy in the Community. So it's female focused, but it is buy-in for everybody in the community. I live in Medway, which is a very large, it's a city council. So we're in Kent, so it's not Kent Council, it's Medway. And we have a new Labour-led administration who are fantastic. And we got funding to run 3 events. So next week I'm running a stand-out workshop. So it's all free for the people in our area. And then I'm doing an event on the 19th of March called How to Have Fun at Work. Because a lot of my work as well, a lot of the work that we do to fund funny women and new talent is with corporates. And having fun at work is so essential. So we like bringing comedy into the workplace. That event is for anybody, regardless of gender. So anyone can come along. And that's a 3-hour, 4-hour event with sort of workshops and panels and live comedy. And will be free as well for people. So I'm going to be pretty busy. So I'm running those things.
I imagine, Danielle, do you get approached a lot as an agent for female acts to gig for free or very cheap on International Women's Day?
It's more that, because it's International Women's Day, if this person's free, do you reckon they just do it for a 10 spot? Because we're only doing it as just like a little little show. And we're doing like six comedians, and it's like, no, absolutely not. Like, I've just booked them in for like a £400 gig, mate. So no, it's not happening. But no, I do get it quite a lot. But I mean, why not be cheeky? But yeah, it's
not in the spirit of International Women's Day.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's taking advantage.
Yeah.
It definitely is. But yeah,
Altruistic.
I don't get it a lot, which is good, but I definitely do get it where they go, oh yeah, you know, do they do just a 10 spot for free? No, I want money, you know. But yeah, it's always a tough one as well, because someone might want to do it, you know, because it is, you know, Women's Day, but it's just, yeah, I just go to them and say, do you want to do it? And if they say, yeah, that'd be great, you know, then why not? But yeah, it does get quite annoying sometimes.
We host Fems and Thems quite regularly.
Yes, we do.
So when they approached us about having it at the Frog and Bucket, I was very firm, wasn't I, that we would love to host this event, but only if you meet normal club standard gig fees, because there does tend to be a trend that if it's an all-female lineup, it's a cheap show.
It is. I mean, I've found that everywhere. Like, you know, when they do a full female lineup, it is really, really cheap. And it feels like they are taking the mickey all the time, because it's like, well, would you do that for an all-male? Because you wouldn't.
Well, that's just a gig, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. It's just a gig. But, like, it wouldn't be that low of a fee. And it does take the mickey, and it really does make me angry sometimes.
I have to say, in 2005, we did a big event for International Women's Day at the Café de Paris, and we did it for about 3 years, and that was the only comedy gig. And now, how many female comedy gigs are there on International Women's Day now? It's gone absolutely ballistic. We don't do one now, because I think, oh God, no. But it's so interesting how that has changed. And International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March, has now become a month. It's just not a day anymore. It's become a real sort of commercial thing.
There's a reason for that. I think, does it fall on a Friday this year?
This year it's a Friday, yeah.
So no one wants to give a key night up.
No, of course not.
A key weekend night up
Where you
to
earn
an
your money.
all-female
Yeah.
lineup. That we want to use it on the quiet Tuesday or Wednesday, because we're still not seen as money makers, maybe. There's maybe still that concept that it's their charitable work that they do on and off
That's
night.
how it's all reframing it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think we have to work very hard on how. I think you're absolutely right. As an agent, you've got to put your foot down and say, right, you know, if it was a man on this night, regardless of what day, you know, what we're celebrating, if a man was going to get 400 quid, then a woman should as well, you know.
Once it did fall on, I remember it fell on a Saturday one year.
Yeah.
So the Frog and Bucket didn't say International Women's Day show. We didn't advertise a lineup. It was just a normal weekend club gig.
But all women.
But no one knew it was all women.
Okay, clever.
So they turned up, and then when they realised, their faces fell off.
Oh, that's awful.
And then they all came away saying that was the best gig they'd ever been to. It helped that Barbara Nice was closing and Kerry Pritchard McLean was on. And then Kudos, following year, Comedy Store did exactly the same thing.
Well, we used to have the final of the Funny Women Awards at a Comedy Store, and I can remember having sort of really wry conversations with Don Ward about whether we would fill the store, because it was all women on the lineup. And of course we did, year after year, so much so we moved it to a bigger venue. Yeah. And, you know, it's only really in the last 10, 12 years that they've started to book more women. There are still some little pockets of, misogyny is too strong a word, but resistance. And I think until that changes, so I do think we're all working towards, you just want a diverse bill. It doesn't matter what the ratio of men to women is. A diverse bill would also include cultural diversity, you know, sexuality, ability, you know. a diverse looking comedy bill isn't just about equal parts male and female. It's there's so much more now in between.
Comedy styles.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
culture,
exactly. Yeah. And I think
Class.
that's what I like to think we're all ultimately aiming for. And all that we're doing is equaling things up by giving safe spaces to women to develop their comedy and, you know, make the scene much more inclusive, which I think it is ultimately.
We've come up to the end nearly. I wonder if anyone wants to ask a question that we've not discussed yet.
Go on.
They all look a bit scared.
The only thing that comes to my mind, thank you, is something you touched upon, that a lot of male on the comedy forums and things that we all know well say that, I asked for a female comic but no one applied. I hear that quite a lot, and I don't really have anything else to say about that, but I just wondered what your thoughts were. Do you think it's true, or?
I have a local promoter. I'm based in Medway, Rochester, and there's a club there. It's now called the Rochester Comedy Club, and it's run by Peter. Can't remember his surname. Sorry, Peter. But I did my usual "why don't you book any women" routine. And he said, well, I try. And every now and then he bumps into me. He says, I really try to book women comics, but do you know what? They let me down. And this is interesting. And I kind of get it, because Rochester it's in North Kent. It's actually quite easy to get to. But on a dark winter's night, when you've got to get off a train or drive out 30 miles out to Kent, it's a little more forbidding if you're a young woman on your own. So there's that, which I think comes into it. Having said that, I am appalled. I won't name names, but some of the women that he's booked who just literally haven't shown up or let him down at the last minute. And that's not good. No. That's not good when there's people like us banging on about equality. I mean, if you get offered a gig and it's one that maybe has always historically been quite male biased, my ask is, please, however difficult it is, go and do it. Please go and do it. Or we'll never change anything.
I would add something as well. I think if you're a booker relying on forums, you're a rubbish, lazy booker.
I was just about to say, there's so many agents.
You're putting the onus on the acts to come to you, where I think as a booker, you should be going out,
That's what I mean.
scouting.
So many
Manchester's great
agents.
that we have a promoters forum where we'll share feedback. We'll go, we've just had this person do a trial, they're really good. It's discussing, it's networking, it's going out. It's not just sticking a post on Facebook and expecting them to come to you. That's just lazy.
And they also probably, what they mean is nobody who has TV credits had applied. So that's what they're talking about. They don't want to say that.
Nobody who I would actually...
Yeah, because what happens a lot in the industry is that, you know, we kind of got a bit of a gap at the moment. You've got lots of women coming into comedy, and that's great, and they're still building their journey in their career. And then the industry, which is separate to the live circuit, will go, ooh, nice. And they will take them, and they will make them huge. And their agents or whoever's booking their gigs will be like, oh, we're going to take them, and we'll book them in, but then we'll take them to something else, or something else comes up. So what at the moment is we've still got that gap of women who are doing the live circuit regularly and making a career from that, because the industry is just taking them so quickly.
And they do nab them as well, because they see them as good marketing
collateral.
collateral.
Yeah. Why does it have to be a token spot? Why does it have to be worded like that? Why can't they just advertise a gig and then choose to book the woman?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be so tokenistic of, oh, we're going to book a woman? Like it's a rarity, one-off, needs its own post. Just book a lineup and then choose to book a woman. It doesn't be a big deal.
That's
one
of my big pet
deal.
hates.
Yeah.
Can I say, though, at least, just to put a positive spin on it, at least they are now asking to, you know, I mean, whether it's lazy or not, there are umpteen comedy forums on Facebook, and they do go, they put it on our
It's
Funny
good
Women
meaning,
community.
it's
Yeah,
well
yeah, and they
meaning.
go, we're looking for more women. And I think, it is a bit annoying, but at least they're asking. So, but I what you said about the final is so true, though, because, all the women that come to look at the talent are female agents, very few men. They can't be asked, really, to sit... Sorry, bad language. They can't be asked to sit through an all-female show, is my view of it.
But it is such
Discuss.
a good show.
Yeah.
It is such a good show.
It is a
I
good
always
show.
really, really
They're
enjoy
missing
it.
out, yeah.
Right, I think, thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining me on the panel.
Thank you for
And thank you, British Comedy Guide and Attenborough for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you.